What is up, everybody? Welcome to the fourth edition of the Against the Grain, Reading the Grain podcast. I am your host, Jason Rouslin, and what I do in this short-form podcast, which is the third part of the Awesemo Golf podcast series every single week, is I read the grain. I read what's in front of me and try to predict out the ownership to try and help everybody find those pivotal against the grain plays, ones that'll help you win the big GPPs or smaller GPPs, whatever way you want to look at it. Certainly plays that will go against the normal and look for the leverage spots. So, first, want to thank our sponsor of the show, Superdraft. The future of daily fantasy sports has arrived. Experience Superdraft exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Like this week, if you want DeChambeau, Hatton, Tony Finau, for what have you, you can put them all in the same lineup. So use that fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want to build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. Right now, Superdraft offers contests for PGA, NASCAR, and MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round, especially with NBA and MLB coming back. So sign up for Superdraft today using the promo code Awesemo12. And claim your free $10 on your first $10 deposit or $20 on your first $100 or more. Of course, you're going to get a free $12 ticket just for signing up. So download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. Superdraft, no limits, more winning. So as I've been doing the last couple of weeks in the beginning of this pod is quickly reviewing last week's Millionaire Maker winner and just some tidbits about it. Total ownership was 60%, the lowest we've seen out of any of the previous Millie Makers. 3 under 10% owned, 2 under 5% owned. Your true stars and scrubs lineup, 3 golfers priced above $9,000 and 3 golfers priced below $7,000. That certainly tugs at my heartstrings. That is the way that I broke into this. My ability to put together stars and scrubs lineup is what set me apart, or one of the things that set me apart. Now, I feel like I've gotten caught up to a little bit in that regard, and certainly, though, happy to see this pan out. Stars and Scrubs has not worked over the last little while for whatever the reason, whether it's DraftKings getting their pricing right or just not many guys that relevant that are priced that low. But we're going to try and find some each and every week, no doubt about it. Let's take a look at the ownership from last week. Viktor Hovland was by far the cheapest option on the board. He was the highest owned in the Millionaire Maker at 22%. He came in around 38% in the big $800 last week. So highest owned guy pretty much throughout the board. Bryson DeChambeau wasn't too far behind. Sung J.M., gamers went right back to him. He was over 20%. Gary Woodland was over 20%, as was Justin Thomas and Tony Finau. So of the top 6 guys that were owned, 3 missed the cut, 3 made the cut. When we drop it down a little bit, Colin Morikawa was number 5, number 7, Joaquin Neiman, number 8, Abe Answer, number 9, and the winner of last week's event, Dustin Johnson. He was number 10 owned on the week last week in the Millionaire Maker. So some pretty obvious and big names in there. Very cheap guys. None of them really. We saw just a lot of value plays going to Vic Hovland and Joaquin Neiman last week. So no surprise there. Let's transition now into this week. And we'll start off with Awesemo's top 10 projected. Now, every single week for the past 3 weeks, they've been at 88% or higher in their relative to square value. So getting a ton of the ownership projections right. Just maybe a couple of misses last week on Gary Woodland and Tony Finau. I did too. I thought they were going to be a lot lower owned than they actually were. But that's why it's certainly not an exact science. However, this week, I think we're going to be above 90%, especially with the field breaking out the way it is. Awesemo has Bryson DeChambeau coming in at 27% owned. So under that 30% mark that I talked about earlier on in the week. Tyrell Hatton coming in at 20%. Brandt Snedeker also coming in at 20%, while Webb Simpson rounds out the guys over 20% owned with just 4 this week compared to the 6 last week. Hideki Matsuyama and Patrick Reed lead the next batch at around 17%, while Sung J.M., Viktor Hovland, and Scotty Scheffler all in at 15% as well. And the last one, I'll give you a few extra here, guys that are above 13%. Doc Redman, Brendan Todd, Adam Hadwin, and Tony Finau. So those are the projected top 10 owned guys this week. So let's head now and find out, see if we can find some good pivots off of these guys. And take a look at each pricing section broken down from 10K and above, 9 to 8K, 7K, and 6K. But before we do, if you're not already an Awesemo Plus member, it is a great time to do so. In fact, you can win an Awesemo Plus monthly pass. All you got to do is check out the pinned tweet on the Awesemo.com Twitter handle for a chance to win that Awesemo Plus monthly pass. This gives you access to all the premium content, tools, and projections on Awesemo.com for 30 days. That's all the English Premier League soccer stuff that we got, or all the soccer stuff, I should say, NASCAR, MMA, esports. Alex Awesemo Baker is incredible at esports and has made it a part of his daily routine. So check out all of that stuff. So all you got to do is like the tweet, subscribe to the Awesemo podcast channel, and leave a 5-star review with your Awesemo username or Twitter handle included. Good luck with that one. Okay, let's move on now. 10K and above. We got 6 golfers yet again, third straight week. We've got that mark. 120% ownership between the 6 guys, so an average of 20. Obviously, with the strength of field being not that much, no surprise to see gamers heading into this pricing category quite a bit. Maybe Hideki Matsuyama, coming off the miscut and still being priced up pretty high, ends up going low-owned or lower-owned than the other guys. That's at least what I'm projecting, but still somewhere around 15%. So, again, maybe a little hard to get leverage there up above 10,000. However, plenty of spots to get leverage here in the 8 to 99 range. 16 total golfers with 170% ownership. So around just over 10% total. Sungjae Im and Tony Finau, as I mentioned at the top, along with Scotty Scheffler, will be the top 3 owned. Ricky Fowler is an interesting case this week. It looks like he'll be 12% owned, but normally in a field like this at 9,500, he'd be 25% owned. Just goes to show you where his game is. Doc Redmond, no surprise to see him and William Gordon coming close to 10%, if not more this week. Both in good form, and Doc Redmond here played great here last year, so no surprise. JT Poston, Adam Hadwin, Jason Day, and Rory Sabatini, all probably going to come in around 10%, leaving us with about 6 or 7 golfers to choose from that'll be below 10% owned this week. And in fact, 4 of them are normal European Tour players that are playing over here, so no surprise, maybe not a lot of name recognition. Rafa Cabrera Bello, Eric Van Rooyen, Christian Benzenhout, and Kurt Kitayama, who was just added to the field. In fact, his Fanduel price, they must have been looking at the wrong thing, because he is only $7,700 over there. Talk about possibly a free square in Kurt Kitayama. I thought that he was going to be $9,500. That's what I put him at because they hadn't come out with the price yet, but still, that's where they price him, kind of weird and crazy. However, on DraftKings for the Millionaire Maker, those guys all projected to be under 10% owned, as well as Bubba Watson coming off a miscut. He's projected maybe around 5%, so an interesting pivot play there. Although $9,200 for him a week after missing the cut, maybe not really the target you want to go to. For and against the grain play, I think Kurt Kitayama, like I said, the gamers that know about him in the field will likely turn their attention to FanDuel at $7,700 to get some exposure there. So I expect below 5% on Kurt Kitayama. Certainly look at him for a Millionaire Maker type contest. All right, moving on to the 7K range now. We have 25 golfers this week, so we're going to get 100-plus golfers in the below 7K range this week. First time we've seen that all year. But in this one, we do have 2 or 3 guys that could get pretty chalky. Certainly Brandt Snedeker is one of them. I expect him to be over 20% now. Harold Varner III also played decently well and is relatively cheap at $7,600. I expect him to come over 10%. And then be a little bit of a surprise when I printed ownership on Siwoo Kim, who's only had 1 good week. Now, granted, his irons have been good for 2 straight weeks. He comes in at maybe 10%, as does Alex Noren, Will Gordon, and Brendan Todd, as well as Tyler Duncan, who's had a pretty good restart and was in that cash game over at the TPC Sawgrass course during the hiatus. And maybe some gamers followed that cash game a little bit, because he is going to press 10% this week. Brian Harman, who was over 15% last week, missing the cut. I expect about half the ownership on him this week of what we got last Of course, maybe setup is not as good, and plus he burned a lot of people last week. So plenty of options still, of course. I only mentioned about 7 or 8 names, so we should have over 15 that are going to get under 10%. And, of course, a bunch that are going to get under 5% this week, including a guy like Tom Hoagie, Kyle Stanley, and Wes Roach, who had one of his only top 5s in his career here last year. So maybe a little bit of good feels around this course for Wes Roach. All right, for the last one, for the last pricing section, we are going to go into the 6,000, and I'm going to do a quick segment on Fanduel, and then a quick segment on Superdraft. Listen to me to learn my words here. I promise you I have not been drinking, at least not today, so maybe just a little late in my talking day. Anyways, okay, let's get back to the golfers here. 6,000. We got 100 or more with the new additions to the field from a couple of people dropping out, and of course the Monday qualifying. So this week it looks like we are going to get 2 or 3 guys that push 10%. Lando Griffin finally made a cut and comes in with certainly some good form from prior to the hiatus. He's been talked about a couple of places, including our Monday PGA DFS First Look show with myself, Jeff, and Sal. Sal Mays does like him quite a bit this week and maybe getting a little bit of ownership bump there. Aaron Wise finally made a cut, and let me tell you, the high dollar people love to play him. And this seems like a really good setup, I'm not going to lie. So I will be taking a look at Aaron Wise as well this week. 10% doesn't really scare me that much. Whereas past champion Nate Lashley comes in around 7 to 10%. I expect a few gamers to look at that course history angle there. All right, that should just about do it. Again, there's over 100 guys, and those are the only 3 that I expect over 5%. So you've got plenty of options to choose from here, like Sam Burns, Luke List, Matt Wallace, Jason Duffner, Kevin Tway, and so many more that you'll get to pick and choose which ones to go overweight. Won't take much to go overweight, but which ones to go overweight for this week. All right, let's quickly touch into Fanduel, because I think it's important, especially with Fanduel's prizes around $100,000. Certainly a reason to play for. So we'll talk about a little bit about them. But before we do, if you could, of course, like or follow us on Twitter if you're not already, and that is the Awesemo_com handle. And of course, if you aren't following me and would like to chat with me, Twitter's a great place to do that. Or, of course, our internal Awesemo Plus Slack channel, which you get access to me, Ben, and everybody else. Any lineup questions you have, any ownership questions you have, we are there to answer them. And, of course, you get all that for just $8.95 a week. So if you're kind of deciding if you want to join for the long haul or whatnot and want to see what we have to offer, that is a great way to do that. Just $8.95 a week. You're going to get, within that, you're going to get everything, including Alex Awesemo Baker's leading projections in the industry, as well as so much more. All right, so let's talk about Fanduel for a second. Each week, there's a big disparity between the ownerships on the sites. Last week, there was some players like Jordan Spieth, who was 2% owned in the $500 on Fanduel. And now, granted, he didn't really make much waves. It's still, if he had come in the top 15 at 4% owned, that would have been great leverage. So while it may not pay off every week, certainly we look at those kind of guys. So who do I expect to be less than 10% owned that is pricey this week? Bubba Watson and JT Potson. Both guys really don't have a lot of following on there, and maybe on the JT Poston side, a little bit higher priced than his DraftKings price, whereas Bubba Watson, maybe that's opposite. $9,200 on DraftKings, only $10,500 on FanDuel. So expect those guys to be really low owned. Now, again, I don't know that this is a great fit for them, but if you're looking at that angle, certainly look for some leverage there. All right, lastly, we're going to turn to the Superdraft Multiplier segment, where I'm going to go over a couple of guys that I expect to be high owned in the multipliers, and maybe a few pivots that you can go to off of the high-owned guys. And, of course, Superdraft is the sponsor of our show, so we thank them for that. In the high-owned multipliers, I believe we're going to see Wes Bryan, who has kind of gotten a few namesakes the last couple of weeks, along with Sung You'll Know and Scott Stallings, who both had really good weeks last week, coming at 1.6x on the multiplier. So I expect a lot of clicks their way. If you're looking for guys to go onto them, look at Christopher Ventura, who's a 1.65x on the multiplier, as well as Cam Davis. Don't expect many gamers to go there, especially the ones that are playing on Superdraft. So, until tomorrow evening, or whenever you're listening to this, I am recording this on Tuesday evening, so whenever you happen to listen to this, come and join Ben, Raz, and I on Wednesday night, 8:30, as we break down the previous 3 days' action and every bit of information that has come out, including any withdrawals due to COVID-19 or the alike. So until then, everybody, thank you for coming and joining the Against the Grain pod. Hopefully I've given you a good indication of where ownership is going to go this week and a few pivots off of them. So until next time, everybody, we will see you on the other side. Cheers.